Here you leave today and enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. These are the words that greet you as you walk from the main entrance of Disneyland into the actual park on Main Street, USA. And that is what we are talking about today on Castle Talk Radio. Come with me as we explore Main Street, USA.
You're listening to Castle Talk Radio. We're live on the airwaves with Becca and Jessica. Now let's jump into this week's episode.
Main Street, USA is such an underappreciated land. There is so much to it, so much history, so many things to do. In fact, I think you could spend a lot of time on Main Street, USA, just exploring and diving into the history of Disneyland. Walt Disney himself walked this street, this main way, and he loved this area of the park. It reminded him of his childhood home. In fact, that's what it was designed after. It was designed after a turn of the century, that is 1900s, not turn of the century into 2000s. Okay, but it was designed after any US town at the turn of the century, but it was much inspired by his child memories of living in Marceline, Missouri. His family moved there in 1906, and his years there helped shape his imagination, his love of small town life, and especially his love for trains. It's not intended to be an exact recreation of any one town. He wanted to combine it and romanticize architecture, transportation, music, and storefronts that reminded people of any US town during that time period, but Marceline references can be found. So Tilly, the ticket seller outside the Main Street Cinema, wears a name tag identifying her as being from Marceline. A Hotel Marceline reference appears near the lockers by the market house there on Center Street. So this kind of is a way that Walt looked back to his past. And that's what that quote that is on above the tunnel says. Here you leave today and explore. I'm going to mess it up because I don't have it right in front of me now. Yesterday. So let's talk about Main Street, USA. The first thing is you enter through Town Square, and we're going to take a walk down, and then we're going to talk about as you leave. As you walk under those tunnels and you come out on Main Street, you're in Town Square and the hub of the City Hall area. So on the left-hand side is City Hall. On the right-hand side is the Disney Gallery and um, Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. And behind you is the Disneyland Railroad Station. And there in the center is the flagpole, as well as you'll have a popcorn cart there and some other treats that you can purchase there as well. Now, importantly, next to City Hall are some of the most important, in my opinion, locations that you can see, and that is the Main Street Fire Station. And then, of course, above that is Walt Disney's apartment. And so we're going to talk a little bit about all of this. So, first off, let's talk about the railroad and how Marceline built his love, Walt Disney's love of trains. So, there were actually three different railways that passed through Marceline, and that was the Atchison, the Topeka, and the Santa Fe railways. So, that helped spark that interest in trains for Walt Disney. He also worked selling newspapers and food aboard the trains as a teenager. He's always loved trains. I mean, you guys, he built a little mini railway in his backyard. And I really think that putting the railroad in Disneyland was his way of like getting that full size scale train that I'm sure Lillian was not going to let him build at home. Um, Town Square often also hosts a lot of character meet and greets. The Fab Five often come out here in the mornings and then throughout the day. to meet with guests, and you will see lines form in the different areas. Here's a little hint for you though. On the right-hand side of Town Square, where you have Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, and then there's the Mad Hatter store next to it. Back in that little corner, there's like a shaded area that they sometimes meet for. The characters will come out of there. So if you happen to be passing through and you see a lot of character helpers standing there, that usually means the characters are getting ready to come out. And if you stand there and wait, you can then walk with which of the characters you choose to go directly with them and be at the front of the line to get your pictures done with them. Now, across the way, of course, we have Walt Disney's apartment. Walt had a private apartment built for him above the Main Street fire station. It allowed Walt to stay inside of Disneyland and really watch over everything that was happening in the parks. I mean, this was his happy place. He could remain close to parks, be involved in the operation and in the continued development. To this day, there is a lamp in the window of the apartment, and it is always lit, and that has become an emotional symbol of Walt's continued presence and influence at Disneyland. Now, you can actually go inside of Walt Disney's apartment. There are often tours that include this. They change them every so often. Walt's Main Street Story, Walt's Walk in Walt's Footsteps. So definitely check the Disneyland website for the different tours and see if there's one that allows you to go in there. You will not be allowed to take picture and video in there, but they will bring in a PhotoPass photographer that will take your picture inside of the apartment. But it's just an amazing experience, and you get to see so much and learn so much while you're in there. The next thing is, as you walk down Main Street, you're going to have all these things that are at eye level, and that includes things like stores, dining, but some at eye level, but up above especially, you need to look up at the windows of Main Street. Now, these windows, they're kind of like the opening credits. So in the older Disney movies, you know how they put all the credits at the beginning? This is your opening credits to Disneyland. And these windows honor Disney legends, Imagineers, cast members that were significant to the Walt Disney Company, but most of them very significant to Disneyland. And they usually appear as like a fun name of a shop or something that ties into their character or their contributions. So like you're gonna have um, Madame Leona and Kim Irvine. So Kim Irvine was a big part of the Disney company. That is the gal who plays Madame Leona's face, not the voice, but she did the whole mask for it. That's her daughter. And they've both been very influential. So they have a window that just recently was dedicated in Disneyland on Main Street. You'll find a lot of the Imagineers, all these different things that you can look at. But there's one to Lillian that's pretty new, and that one is fairly large, and it's at the front of it. But as you walk up and down, you can see all these honorees and get to know a little bit about them, either by taking a tour that includes information about those, or here's a fun little suggestion. If you're really into Disney history, every time you visit the park, I want you to pick one person's window. Pick one window with the name or names if it has two, and then go and research that window and the person that it is there for and representing. And I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this over the next year or so. I'm going to take the time to research these windows so I can get to learn about all of these people. Now, Main Street may feel like it's just a place to shop and maybe get a few bites to eat, but that is not the case. There are also attractions, and one of those, or multiple of those, because there are multiple options, are the Main Street vehicles. So these Main Street vehicles um, are representing turn of the century transportation options as well. Again, back in the 1900s, not the 2000s turn of the century. And they include horse-drawn streetcars, a double-decker omnibus, a fire engine, and these aren't just there for decoration. You can actually ride these Main Street vehicles, and they will take you from Town Square to the Castle Hub. And it's a great way, especially that omnibus. If you get up on that second story, it's a great way to see the parks and explore it a little bit differently. I do suggest that you ride early in the day when it's less crowded, and also just because they do stop the transportation options later in the day, either for, weather, park operations, parades, all of those kind of things. So don't push this off and be like, I'm going to ride it at night. You're not going to ride it at night because they don't run at night. And there's also a few other things that you can do. There's the Main Street Cinema. So the Main Street Cinema is one of the most overlooked stops. And as you go in there, it offers a vintage setting where you can enjoy either early Disney animated shorts, or at the time that I am recording this, it also has an ode to the Sherman Brothers. Now, that is probably changing soon as they wind down the 70th celebration, but it's still kind of fun to see. So if you go and that is going on, definitely check it out. And it presents the last verse in It's a Small World, which has been added now on the ride at Disneyland. It's a brief break from the crowds, a place to appreciate early Disney animation or the songwriters that shaped Disney. And it's an easy stop that a lot of guests walk past. And just reminder, don't forget to say hi to Tilly outside of the entrance with her Marceline name tag. Another thing that you can do is obviously the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, but inside of that building, there's actually a new option that came with the 70th anniversary, and that is Walt Disney One Man's Dream. And this is where you can see an animatronic that is modeled after Walt Disney himself, and they used his voice, I believe. Sorry if that's wrong. Um, to to put together with that animatronic, so it feels like you are watching Walt himself. And so these like switch off and on. Um, at the time I'm recording this, I believe it's Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln in the morning and the Walt Disney One Man's Dream in the afternoon to evening. So definitely check the Disneyland app, or there's a sign out front in front of Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. Now, there's a ton of shops along the way, obviously. Here you have the Magic Shop, you have the Emporium, you have Candy Palace, but there's also a lot of dining. So this is where you would find Carnation Cafe, Jolly Holidays at the end of Main Street, Plaza Inn, even the Red Wagon with the corn dogs. Little Red Wagon. Now, I knew I should have my notes in front of me, but you can find all of these locations. And also tucked back there behind the corn dog place and Plaza Inn, and in between that and the Christmas shop is First Aid and the Baby Center. So if you need those. And the other thing I do want to point out that's on Main Street that at Center Street. So that's where Carnation Cafe is on one side, and then there's like a fruit stand on the other side. If you go to the back, there's a little bit of seating, there's a drinking fountain, and there are also lockers, and those may be good for you. Now, the drinking fountain, though, that wall, if you look at it, it has two different types of bricks, and that is because this is where they tested which bricks they should use in Walt or in Disneyland. So that wall was there to test the two different types of bricks. Now, let's just talk a little bit about Main Street's atmosphere and the entertainment. So first off, it's more than just the architecture, but one thing about the architecture I do need to point out that's often overlooked is the street lamps, because as you walk down Main Street, the street lamps evolve and become more modernized. So it's like you're coming from like the gaslit ones, which is where we get the term gaslighting, all the way down, and you start getting to electric ones. So definitely take a look up and notice that. You will also find lots of turn of the century options for entertainment. You have the Dapper Dans, which is a barbershop quartet. You have the Disneyland band that will go up and down the street. You have at next to Jolly Holiday at Refreshment Corner, you'll have a piano player a lot of times. You'll have cavalcades and parades, and there'll also be lots of seasonal decoration and entertainment in this area. So definitely check all of those out. And of course, at night, this is one of the. Can you hear the sirens? I'm actually recording this while visiting Disneyland. I'm across the street from Disneyland. And so there's traffic and there's sirens. Another great entertainment thing at Disneyland from Main Street is obviously the fireworks. There are projections all along the buildings on Main Street and on the castle, and this is where you're going to get the best view for anything that flies over. So if it's Wondrous Journeys, Baymax. If it's the Pixar um, Pals one. I can't remember what that one was actually called. You'll see the Up House, Tinkerbell, all those things that fly over the castle during different fireworks shows. Now, fireworks are not every night, but even on the nights they don't have fireworks, they will do projections and music. So that is kind of fun. Now, dining on Main Street, I already kind of mentioned most of them. Carnation Cafe, which you will want reservations for. There is, that's like a sit down dining, and it just has a good choice of food. The Plaza Inn has a character breakfast, but then it's also famous for its um, fried chicken. Sorry, guys. Wow. And then, of course, you also have, Jolly Holiday Bakery and that little red wagon with the corn dogs, and you have refreshment corners and Gibson Girl ice cream parlor. Yes, please. Now, as you've gone past all of these things, you will come to the hub of um, by the castle and the pathways to the different lands, and this is set up as a wagon wheel with the spokes going out to the different lands. And in the center is the iconic statue of Walt Disney and Mickey, because let's not forget, it all started with a mouse. And these hubs will get you to Adventureland, Frontierland, Fantasyland, if you go through Sleeping Beauty Castle or off to the sides of it, and Tomorrowland. So, one thing I want to talk about is as you come in, excitement's high, and you're kind of just rushing down Main Street. And this is partially by design, is that when you come in the morning, you'll have much more upbeat music throughout most of the day. But at the end of the night, some point in the evening, the music changes because now it is becoming the end credits of your show that you are a part of, because that's what Disneyland is. It's a show. That's why you have members that wear costumes. This is a show that you get to be a part of. And the end credits play and they use nostalgic music. And that is so that you will think back of the memories you made that day and want to come again and make those memories or relive those memories with more people that you love. I hope you enjoyed this walk through Main Street and doing a little bit more deep dive. Be sure to tune in for the rest of our lands. We still have a few left to do in this deep dive into all of the lands of Disneyland in honor of the 70th celebration, which is coming to a close probably before the series is over. And don't forget, if you want to visit Disneyland, you'll get the best deals by going to getawaytoday.com/castletalk.